Mina the Hollower could have been built from the ground up as a traditionally structured video game, and it would have still been excellent, but it didn't do that. It had ambitions bigger than the developer's previous work, Shovel Knight, bigger than all 4 of Shovel Knight's campaigns combined actually, deciding to forego the linear approach and instead sprawl a giant maze of level design, secrets, and optional bosses so densely packed it is hard to walk a block without falling over something interesting. Yacht Club's latest game is a beautiful marriage of Blood Knight and Shovel Borne that comes out the other end as something especially great. This thing was shaping up to be so good they had to nerf certain NPCs because they were too attractive.
Was there ever a moment when a character was a little too hot and you had to dial it back a bit?
Yeah, that happens.
That aside, the hype is clearly peaking, as my feed has been inundated with Mina herself. A great sign. For this review, it's important that you know, I am not one of those people who thinks the natural pinnacle of game design is an open world. There's this growing sentiment that non-linear is simply better design, as if putting grass fields between everything automatically improves the game. What's been forgotten, somehow, is that there's a time and place for good old-fashioned linear video game design, especially since they tend to be more focused, more curated, faster paced. I could go on. As mentioned, Mina is not such a title, yet it justifies its existence as an open world one. But I almost don't want to call it an open world, rather, it feels like one giant level. Nothing's barren here, every screen has intention, providing pressure on the player in different ways. I cannot imagine the amount of playtesting that went into this thing to account for all the possible routes the player can take, gear combinations, stat application, all that stuff, but a great amount of time was clearly spent doing just that and fine-tuning the world. None of this is to say that Mina is completely immune to the downsides of non-linear video games, because there's certainly instances of that, but I'm getting ahead myself. So very briefly, what is Mina the Hollower? Well, basically, take all the charm of Yacht Club's previous game, make it top-down, and crack it wide open. You control the titular Mina, battling baddies with multiple weapons and the ability to burrow underground. When you're not doing that, you'll be exploring varied locales in any order you want to activate generators whilst getting distracted by obscured chests, forest coves, and gilded halls along the way. It's a common saying in reviews about open-world games that distraction is some of the best fun you can have, but it's so true here it has to be mentioned. Made better by the fact that despite what you might have thought in your time watching so far, this is not a Metroidvania, meaning if you see a collectible, there's a very good chance you can think your way to it. Difficulty is the main obstacle between you and almost every area and item, not new abilities. A few places might require defeating a boss first, or using a temporary weapon. More on those soon. For now, we need to talk about the philosophy of how this game is stitched together, because for a handful of people, this will be a deal breaker. The level design itself is fantastic, often making great use of little space. Even the most cramped corridors will pressure you in an interesting way. There's often enough obstacles in an area that you're required to navigate it in a semi-creative fashion. Maybe you need to burrow under these ropes to get some extra distance in the swamp, delve right before a jump so you can leap 2 tiles, or carefully cling to candlelight in a dark room. Like any game with good environmental diversity, regions always feature some new platforming gimmick that makes it feel distinct from the others, like these boats in the swamp you need to provoke or these lava trails that react to how you dig. I especially like seeing reactive mechanics like this, so I was having a grand old time. The level design we've discussed so far is impressive, but that's not even taking into account the fact more often than not these places were designed to be transversed multiple times, whether it's just because you need to pass through again, or you're escorting an NPC you need to protect. You'll be surprised at how often old places feel new again due to a new variable. Like this ladder you can steal will restrict your jumping capabilities, requiring more careful routing, but open up the door to many secrets. Yacht Club really got a lot of mileage out of each square inch of their own world, and unraveling the cleverness with which it shuffles us through it multiple times is a treat. What's not a treat is how obtuse things can get. I interviewed one of the developers at Yacht Club and I can see where they're coming from, but there are clear downsides to what they said. YCG wanted the game to be a community experience, meaning you and your mates trade info you've learned and work together to sift through all of the secrets. Now, to be clear, I do think making a group chat and bouncing ideas between 3 or 4 of your friends is the best way to play this game. It's a fun way to play a lot of puzzle games even. But I also don't think that should be a requirement. Some of the solutions to these puzzles make you go, oh come on, maybe someone out there will be smart enough to uncover every collectible without outside input, but in the press coverage server, lots of reviewers, myself included, did occasionally need a nudge in the right direction, not just for secrets, but where to progress in the main game. And we're talking experienced reviewers that have been in the industry for a while on this server. Due to its open nature, you can technically tackle the generators in any order you want, but doing so isn't always fun. Like, yeah, you can go to an area you're underpowered for, and with the right precision and movement persevere, but if I wanted to wail on an enemy 87 times to kill it, I'd play Silksong. Not this. Maybe you feel different. There is certainly an elating feeling to conquering a hard area early, but I wouldn't really recommend it on a first playthrough. It can definitely be annoying to not know the way forward, save for one area you're obviously not ready for. Though it helps that no matter where you get lost, it'll be somewhere pretty. Despite its gripes, Mina the Hollower is a great reminder how nice it is to have eyes. Graphically, this game is a delight, holding on to the visual hiccups from the Game Boy, but proudly. Time makes fools of us all, and where once there were blemishes, there is now beauty. A beige sheen provides the base tone over the entire adventure, and color spills from sprites in ways that are rigid yet right, irregardless of where they're placed. An homage to the quirks of Mina's inspiration that feels fittingly cozy and nostalgic, like a pixelated patch blanket. Areas with entirely different color schemes can converge and twist on each other yet feel perfectly in line. Larger sprites and cutscene art is especially impressive, rigged with palette and personality in equal measure. Astonishingly, Mina feels like such a natural entry in the Game Boy library despite the hues being infinitely more vivid than anything on that console. There's actually multiple filter settings that let you completely change the color scheme of the game, and even a setting where it changes every time you jump. Playing this in Game Boy Green is tempting, but kind of like Ghost of Tsushima's black and white mode, it's a sin to play this game without its rich colors and jet black shading that gloss each locale and character. A look so arresting you might get distracted while actually fighting anything. Combat in Mina is like a souped up version of early The Legend of Zelda titles, with Souls-like elements for spice. You've got a handful of weapons you can toggle between at base, like the Castlevania-esque flail, a giant hammer, and even a projectile weapon that lets you charge ammo by melee striking enemies a la Hyperlight Drifter. Very neat. The hitbox on a lot of these weapons are quite generous. Even if a strike from the hammer wouldn't spatially line up with an enemy logically, just the sprite touching it is enough for a hit to register. Not to get too off topic as we're talking about combat right now, but Mina the Hollower actually does a lot of little things like this in the background to make stuff feel smoother, especially since platforming's more tricky from a top-down perspective. Hopping over pits gives you a tiny bit more airtime than you would jumping over a surface, for example. Shadows mark exactly where you'll land and flicker over danger. There's even generous coyote time, meaning you can leap a tiny bit after walking off a surface. Lots of your favorite platformers have this, and you might not have even realized. It's all to remove the friction. Going back to combat, you can also have one of many side items on hand at a time. These act very much like pickups in Castlevania, temporary equips that cost mana to use. As stated, these are the closest Mina gets to being a Metroidvania. There's cool standouts like the Lance motorcycle thing and this lantern that dishes a satisfying AoE attack. Health potions replenish at this game's version of bonfires. Interestingly, the effectiveness of your potions is tied to how much damage you've recently dealt to enemies, meaning fights reward bold and risky decision-making. You're constantly putting yourself in harm's way to farm health, a clever way to funnel players into danger to keep things interesting. Bloodborne famously had a similar gimmick, but that recovery system was tied to how much damage you'd recently taken rather than dealt. I think I prefer Mina's way of doing things since it rewards you for landing hits instead of receiving them. There is an issue in regards to enemy health at times. On the main route or not, they can be a touch spongy, especially if you evenly distribute your stats on level up like the game seems to want. You'll quickly find fights can drag this way, and I definitely recommend prioritizing damage above all else. There's tons of equiptables in this game in the form of trinkets. These range from passive to active in their utility, and they help make combat uniquely yours. Many are interesting, like this one that lets you leave behind toxic sludge as you burrow. Others feel completely useless, or at least have an application I couldn't picture myself possibly getting used to. Like it's cool that this trinket lets me cause mini earthquakes when burrowing, but it does so little damage it's not worth incorporating into my playstyle, really. This game goes out of its way not to be a Metroidvania, but unfortunately some of the sore points that come with that genre have dug their way into Mina the Hollower. You've likely inferred, if you're not a huge fan of treading the same areas time and time again, there's no dancing around it, you're not going to enjoy yourself, and depending on your sense of direction in games, you might end up with more where do I go moments than you'd care for. Though, thankfully there's so much to find here that you're likely to stumble into something significant sooner rather than later, though that something might be a difficulty spike. Issues aside, Mina the Hollower is taken straight from a parallel dimension where video games stayed simple and honest. It preserves the charm of what made those titles great whilst adding flair only possible in the current era. I didn't realize how much I missed Yacht's previous work until I played this. Different games for sure, yet lots of little things that made Shovel Knight great survived the transit, the signature art style brimming with color, the hidden enclaves that burst open in satisfying fashion when struck, the exact way items flash and sparkle right before you nab them, the plentiful secrets, the cute characters. It's all here. You can tell the devs were really excited to work with this extra dimension that they weren't afforded before. Also present from SK are cheat codes, except this time they're called modifiers. These can make the game easier or harder. One can make enemies deal more damage, others could slow down the speed of the game. One spins the screen perpetually for some reason. A lot of people got mad about these since they allow you to make the game easier from the start. Perhaps they were frustrated because they believed that Yacht Club was compromising the design of the base game. I didn't interpret it that way, as it seems like the default non-modified version of the game is the ideal way they want you to play still. I don't think every game needs an easy mode. I won't be frustrated if there isn't one. But I also won't be frustrated if there is one. No matter where you stand on this debacle, remember it could all be worse. Tales of Maj'El is so difficult it doesn't have an easy mode. It has an easier mode. Play this if you dislike yourself. Whilst many modifiers are unlocked from the get-go, you can get even more in subsequent new game pluses, of which there are 7. Each remixes the game in some new way, so if one playthrough just wasn't enough, you have quite the encore waiting for you here. I love my roguelites. I love my deck builders. I love procedural generation when done right, but by God, I really needed this. This is the first world I've been in that's felt handcrafted in some time. If you can stomach the trappings that are almost always bundled with these kinds of games, like some frustrating power scaling, occasionally getting lost, and things being overly esoteric without help or a guide at times, you're gonna find so much to love in Mina the Hollower. Thanks to the patrons, including Mike, Melody, Nate the Great 228, Jaded, Stalking, Hidden, Allie, Alex Flacco, Amber Beanbag. Become a patron for early access to videos, among other benefits. Join the server, follow me on X, all that stuff. I'm gonna have a eugenics video out soon, so leave a video on the subscribe if you enjoyed that you thought it, and I'll see you next time. Boo-bye.